Look, when you're on the clock, you're going to have some tough decisions to make. Some players, they look like they're going to give you the same thing in fantasy, but it couldn't be further from the truth. We're going to run through 10 picks that could make or break your draft and your season. Why not start in round one with some elite running backs, but some very different type of players here. You got the veteran who has been the best player in all of fantasy versus the rookie. Talking about CMC and Ashton Giante. So, Chris, which way do you go?
Well, if you've been watching my videos all season, I'm going Christian McCaffrey here. But look, I liked it better when I could get Christian McCaffrey in round 2, but now we got to take both these guys towards the end of round 1. But I'm still going McCaffrey. This is a guy we know what he can do at the NFL level. One of the best players in all of football when he is healthy. Yeah, I like Genty, and I think Genty's going to be great. But we've seen rookies not quite live up to expectations as rookies in recent years. So I'm just going to go ahead, take the guy I know is a proven stud when he's healthy and on the field, which it sounds like he's going to be. That's CMC.
This is really a tough call, and it could go either way. But the only reason I think you would not want Christian McCaffrey on your squad is if you just assume he's going to get injured again. And you can't just assume that. And you know what? Rookies get injured too. Just because it hasn't happened to Ashton Johnson yet doesn't mean it can't. And the one thing that we know CMC gives you is that elite pass catching. And we just don't know at the pro level what Johnson is going to do. And also, you know what? I think if I had to do kind of a blind taste test here, running backs, you just assume they're exactly the same and both elite athletes. You want the guy in the 49ers offense or the Raiders offense. I'll take the guy in the Niners offense as well. Now, at the lower end of the RB1 spectrum, maybe high end RB2, depending on your league, you got two guys who broke out last year, but which one do you prefer this year between Bucky Irving or Chase Brown?
Well, I certainly prefer Chase Brown, especially when he usually goes around later than Bucky Irving. But even if these guys were going neck to neck, I would still take Chase Brown. I mean, Zach Taylor talking about this guy can be a top 10 running back in the NFL. They did nothing this offseason to bring in any competition for him. He's going to be the workhorse running back in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Bucky Irving, yes, he was great last year. I think he'll still be good, but he does still have to contend with Rachaad White. Give me Chase Brown.
Give me Chase Brown too. It's funny that now people are trying to find ways to not make Chase Brown a workhorse back because he just doesn't fit that mold. Like, oh yeah, Zach Moss is coming back, and oh yeah, they drafted a rookie in like round 5 or 6, and come on, like they don't have another option that's better than Chase Brown that's going to take him off the field. And this is just one of the best offenses to have a piece of in fantasy. Period. Not just the passing game, but also the running game. So between the two, I think it's got to be Chase Brown. Now, it wasn't that long ago. This was a debate between who was the best receiver in fantasy, Tyreek Hill, Davante Adams. Now you can get these guys in round 3 or 4 these days. Who's your pick?
Well, my pick is definitely Davante Adams here. Now, I'm going to talk about Tyreek Hill and why I'm kind of not drafting Tyreek Hill in our next video, so I won't go into detail here. But look, Davante Adams was still very productive last year for the Jets. I love that he's moving over to the Rams, and I love the fact that now he's getting later in his career. What did we see with the Jets? They played him a lot in the slot. That's what we're going to see with the Rams. This is what you need when you're an aging wide receiver and you don't have that quite elite separation, elite speed anymore. You need to move into the slot. That is going to help Davante Adams. Tyreek Hill, going to be stuck in the same role last year. Probably going to be just as bad as last year. Give me Adams.
Yeah, before last season, we thought these were both just elite offenses that you want a piece of, and it doesn't look that way in Miami anymore. And the thing is, with Ty Hill, his role has changed, whether you think he's still got it or not, that elite speed. He saw fewer passes behind the line of scrimmage, fewer manufactured touches. He's not getting the deep balls as much. In other words, he's not an elite fantasy receiver anymore. So even if he bounces back, I'm taking Davante Adams as well. All right, now let's talk rookies. Who do you think will be the better rookie wide receiver one? Is it Ted McMillan for Carolina or Travis Hunter in Jacksonville?
This is probably our toughest one for me so far. I'm going to go slightly McMillan just because I know he's the wide receiver one for Carolina. But I really like Travis Hunter, and it wouldn't shock me if Hunter is actually better than McMillan because the Jags, even though we think, oh, Jacksonville, not a great offense, with Liam Cohen there, we could see the Jags make quite a leap this year offensively. But I think the Panthers will be good enough. I think Bryce Young will be good enough. So I'm going to give McMillan the edge here.
This is razor thin, and of course, things will change quickly as we see exactly how much these guys are using the passing game. I was Team McMillan immediately after the draft. But now that we're hearing Travis Hunter is basically a full time receiver, I think I'm going to go Hunter because I have just a little bit more confidence in that offensive system, in Trevor Lawrence as a passer versus Bryce Young. And, the big playmaking ability, I think Travis Hunter has definitely got it. And there's just less depth behind him. So I could go either way on this one, but right now I'm giving Hunter the edge. Now, what if you want an elite QB early? And usually you get to choose between Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels in about the same range. You have a preference?
I do, and I'm going with Jalen Hurts. And this is painful to me as a Commanders fan. And look, I could totally be wrong on this. And I think part of the reason why I'm going Jalen Hurts is because I'm worried as a Commanders fan that, like, can Jaden Daniels really do this again? Are we going to see a sophomore slump? So, but again, I'm just going to take the guy I know is going to give me, what he's given me the last 4 or 5 years. That's about 600 to 800 rushing yards, double-digit rushing touchdowns. And look, if something happens to Saquon Barkley, which is not out of the question after all the touches he had last year, they're going to need to throw it more. So I know. I want to say Jaden Daniels, but I know deep down my pick is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think you got to go with Hurts in this situation because this offense really has no reason to take a step back from last year. And the other thing is what we've noticed with Washington as the year went on, their defense really got better, which actually is not necessarily a good thing for a quarterback because that means they have to pass it less. Jane Daniels still put up great numbers, but I think in terms of rushing output, I would still give the edge to Jalen Hurts. In terms of passing, I prefer the skill players in the Eagles offense as opposed to the Commanders. You know what? It could go either way here, but just avoid the risk of the sophomore slump and go the known commodity, Jalen Hurts. Big play wide receiver, former Steeler or current Steeler. Let's pick between George Pickens and DK Metcalf.
This might be the easiest one we've had so far. This is easily George Pickens from me. He's going from one of the worst situations you could be in for a wide receiver to one of the best situations you could be in for a wide receiver. Because, yeah, even though he's competing against CeeDee Lamb, the Cowboys are routinely one of the top teams in terms of pass attempts per game, and the Steelers are routinely one of the bottom teams in pass attempts per game. Not to mention he's going from the terrible quarterbacks he had last year and crusty old Aaron Rodgers to Dak Prescott. Easily George Pickens.
Very easily George Pickens. Let's not use this as a platform to rail against Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers and all the reasons I just don't like that Steelers offense in general, especially the pass offense. But also think about George Pickens last year. If you had George Pickens last year, were you happy? Were you thrilled that you drafted him? No. Okay, who took his place? DK Metcalf. Look, there's no bigger DK Metcalf truther than me, but the truth is he's probably going to disappoint you in fantasy. Give me Pickens. All right, old Joker or new Joker. Talk about Sean Payton's running back, do-it-all guy. It was Alvin Kamara, but now it's RJ Harvey. These two running backs, despite being very different in stature, are going about the same range in fantasy. So who do you prefer?
I'm probably going to surprise you and a lot of people here, but I prefer Alvin Kamara. If you had asked me this a month ago, I would have preferred RJ Harvey, but they did go out and sign J.K. Dobbins, and sure, J.K. Dobbins probably not going to play a full season, but when he does play, he was still a productive running back last year. I think he'll be productive here. I think he'll take enough touches away from RJ Harvey. Like Alvin Kamara, a shell of his former self when it comes to running the football, but he still catches a zillion passes, and whoever the starting quarterback is for the Saints, which sounds like it's going to be Tyler Shuck, they're going to check it down to Alvin Kamara relentlessly, and touchdown vulture Taysom Hill is out of the picture. I'm taking Kamara.
I'm taking Harvey. I mean, I've loved Harvey since before the draft, and he landed in the perfect spot. He's the Joker. That means a ton of receptions. I can't guarantee that Alvin Kamara is going to get more receptions than him down the stretch, and that's what I'm looking at. Who is going to be the guy I want to count on during the fantasy playoffs? The veteran who has faded the last couple of seasons late, or the rookie who's just going to come on as the second half, continues. But also you got to remember, not only does RJ Harvey have Peyton on his side, Kamara does not have Clint Kubiak anymore. And this offense, it's going to be a work in progress. Just give me Harvey. Now, it's fair to ask, who is the wide receiver one in San Francisco these days? Because Brandon Ayuk is going to probably take some time to rehab. Ricky Pearsall or Juwan Jennings, who you think is their guy?
This one's really tough for me, and I know most people are to think, oh, he's going to say Pearsall because I've talked up Pearsall so much, but I do also really like Juwan Jennings, and there's a part of me that thinks I probably should say Jennings here because when I look at it, yes, Pearsall may get more targets in this offense, but they're probably going to be shorter targets. Jennings is the big play guy, the touchdown guy, and Jennings played a full season. He's played multiple full seasons in this offense. Pearsall's only played half a season in this offense. So although I do really like Pearsall as a breakout this year, I think if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to give the edge slightly to Jennings.
It's close, and the reality is, they'll probably be a different wide receiver one any given week, right? These guys will both have big games. They'll both be a big part of the offense. When I'm on the clock and I have to choose, I'm going to Pearsall over and over again, and I'm going to continue to do that. The thing is, Jennings, you already had that monster game we all remember, and some big games in the middle of the season. That was when Brandon Ayuk was hurt, and that was before Pearsall was really back. Remember, Pearsall didn't come on until late in the season because of that gunshot wound, and when he was at full health, he actually went off at the very end of the season. I think he carries that on. Jennings is still valuable. I still like him. I just like Pearsall more. Now, the Giants' backfield, another old versus new debate here. We got Tyrone Tracy, who was the incumbent starting running back, and now we got Cam Skattebo. Who's your guy?
Well, you know who my guy is here. If you watched me all season, you know I love Skattebo. I still love Skattebo. I wish he landed in a better spot than this, but I think eventually he will become the guy for the Giants. Like, Tracy was fine last year. He had his moments, but he also had a lot of fumbling issues. And look, this guy is not built to be a workhorse running back. I think Skattebo eventually gets more of the touches here. So I'm often on the clock with both these guys available. I'm almost always taking Skattebo.
In best ball, we do a lot of these drafts in the underdog, and the reality is I'm trying to get a little bit of each, but I find myself with more Tracy, and if I'm doing a redraft league, I want the guy who, number one, is probably going to be the starting running back in week one, but also I think could hold on to that job. I mean, Tyrone Tracy, you got to remember, this is the former receiver, a guy who didn't really have a lot of experience at running back and not any experience in this offense until early portion of last season had already started. So I like Tracy still. He's got the skill set, speed. He can catch the ball, great hands, of course. And I think that he can hopefully not pull a Tiki Barber and keep putting the ball on the ground and, do something a little bit more like Saquon. I like Tyrone Tracy a little bit more, and I think his upside is just that a little bit greater than Skattebo. For those of you who like to wait on tight end, sometimes you can stare at the two top rookies of this class, and we've seen rookie tight ends go off in the last couple of years. But is it Tyler Warren or is it Colston Loveland that should be the pick in fantasy?
I mean, can I say neither? I'll slightly give the edge to Loveland right now, but this may change in training camp if he's still dealing with his injury and he's not getting any practice time, any practice reps. Then I'll probably just say Warren because it's hard for a rookie who hasn't had any practice reps to have significant playing time. But if I had to pick one of these guys at the moment, Loveland, but honestly, I'd rather just pass on both.
Yeah, I'm probably not taking one of these rookies as my starting tight end, but given the choice here, give me Warren. The tight end that thrives in fantasy is the guy that usually has the higher target share, and that comes with less competition. Loveland has a lot of good receivers that he's competing with, not to mention Cole Kmet is still a decent pass-catching tight end. Tyler Warren, look, there are some decent receivers there, but I think that he is going to be a more focal point of this offense. They already said they're going to force him to get some targets across the middle, and I don't love Daniel Jones at quarterback, but if there's a guy that he's going to dump the ball off to more often than not, it's probably going to be the tight end. So give me Tyler Warren. And speaking of Indy, that offense, who do you think is the wide receiver one? Is it Michael Pittman, who could bounce back from injury, or is it Josh Downs?
Yeah, Josh Downs getting a lot of hype again, right? This happens every offseason. And look, we've done it, right? We've hyped him up, and he's a good player. But Josh Downs is a slot-only wide receiver who's only out there in 3 wide receiver sets and has a very low ADOT. Give me Pittman here. I mean, again, I don't think either of these guys are going to be guys you're going to look back on and be like, wow, that guy won me my league. But give me the guy who's the true wide receiver one who's going to be out there every single snap and can actually catch the ball down the field if either of these quarterbacks can even throw the ball to any of the wide receivers.
This might be a situation where Downs winds up leading the team with receptions, but Pittman has more yards, more touchdowns, more big plays, big games. So I'll give the benefit of the doubt to Pittman. Hopefully he's fully healthy this year and he reasserts himself as the number one receiver in this offense, which is what he rightfully is. Those are 10 picks that could make or break your draft this season, but got a lot more than that you need to focus on. So check out the playlist here with all the advice you need to help dominate your draft.